let you know.
Good afternoon.
Okay.
Good afternoon.
Are we live? Go ahead. Are we live? Okay. Okay. Good afternoon. Today is November 18th, 2024. Thank you for coming to today's Community Advisory Committee meeting. My name is Michael Ross. I'm the Director of Stakeholder Engagement for the NYCHA Monitors. We're here at NYCHA's offices at 90 Church Street. The meeting is being recorded, and we are also live streaming the meeting, and we will post the video when it's done at the Monitor's website at www.nychamonitor.com. For those here today, there's an attendance sign-in sheet. We'll take attendance also off of the Zoom, and we'll post the list of attendees of the meeting there. Just to let everyone know, we're actually piloting a new feature today, which is we are opening the live stream on YouTube to allow viewers to ask questions, to put questions into the chat. So if you're a viewer at home, please do that, and we can share those as appropriate during the meeting. If we don't get to your question, we'll follow up with you after. We're hoping this enables more interaction with residents and more ability for residents to participate. We've tested the technology, but please bear with us today as we actually piloted it out in practice. So we have a busy agenda today, so we'll jump into it. First, we're going to have a presentation from NYCHA about heat from EVP Keith Grossman and VP Javier Almodovar. And then after that, we'll have a short session, as we always do, on safety and security, and we'll hear from Chief Secreto. And if there are any other issues members want to raise, we can do it at that time. So with that all said, I'm going to turn it over to Keith.
Thanks, Mike. So I'll turn it over to Javier to begin. I just want to say thanks for having us. Appreciate the opportunity to converse with residents and get some feedback. So we'll get started. So what we wanted to do here was talk about our kind of lead up into the 2024-2025 heating season. And kind of give an overview of the department, how we've made some changes moving forward, and you know how that will lead to some level of improvement. We can go to the next slide. We'll leave this for a second so everybody can read it, and then we can just go right into it.
Next slide, yeah. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, so one of the things, as we all know, as we all know, the property management side of operations went into a neighborhood model. In order to support that and increase communications, get better supervision in the boiler room by our supervisors, we adopted a similar model with a little less oversight, managerial oversight at the top. We kind of split the boroughs into a couple of teams, and then each neighborhood has its own supervisor, and then created the support unit to that, separate, all reporting up to Godfrey and Javier. And this is the current state of the heating department now. And as you can see, it's again geographically set up. It's typically north, south, or east, west in Brooklyn, Manhattan, and the Bronx, and then we have one administrator for Queens for the size of the portfolio. One second.
If you just bring it back to that previous slide, I just want to point out that first of all, my name is Javier Almodovar. I'm the Vice President for NYCHA's Heating Management Services Department. But this slide shows the breakdown where we now have a Senior Director, Godfrey Charles. He will focus primarily on the field operation, where I will focus, my main focus will be with resources. Funding, contractual resources, and of course training, making our staff better. Next slide. And so this slide shows how we do it. As everybody knows, the NYCHA's heating department is dedicated to provide consistent and adequate heat and hot water to all NYCHA residents citywide. We're responsible for the heating operation from the building systems, which includes the boilers, distribution piping, and apartment radiators. And this is pretty much a breakdown of how we do that. We have a total of 715 full-time personnel. Our budget operating and staff is approximately $110 million right now. We have 917 boilers, 1,757 distribution systems, 1,571 hot water systems. We do have 20 mobile boilers. Of those 20 mobile boilers, 13 are NYCHA owned and 7 are rental units. Of those 20 that we have in stock right now, 13 of them are staged. Of the ones that are staged, 7 are NYCHA owned and 6 are PMI. The average age of our current boiler systems, or heating systems, rather our boilers, I'm sorry, is 26 years. The expected useful life of a boiler is anywhere from 20 to 25, and you can get some more years out of that with good supporting systems around that boiler. Next slide. So one of the things that we did improve, of course, is resident communication. On the heels of the HUD agreement, one of the things that we needed to do better was communicate with our residents, of course. And to do that, we created a 24-hour heat desk. So not just resident communication, but communicating with all of our stakeholders. And what we did was we created an outage notification service interruptions overview website that's visible to the public. This website captures every single, not only heat and hot water outages, but also elevator, electrical, and gas. But for the purpose of this conversation, what we have displayed is a sample of the heat and hot water outages. It captures the address of the actual service disruption, the type of interruption, whether it's planned or unplanned, the reported date, and the status of that outage. And the status gets updated regularly through our 24-hour heat desk. Those statuses change from outage reported, staff assigned, staff working, to restored. And whenever any of these outages is caused because of an external source, like Con Edison, DEP shutting down water, or Con Edison shutting down gas or high pressure steam, it'll show up as a status with referred to service provider, utility provider. This page also shows the impact. If it's an entire development that's impacted, then it'll show all the buildings impacted, the total apartments in that development, and the resident population. And as I said, the 24-hour heat desk, which was created to track these service disruptions, is responsible for tracking, monitoring, and reporting on all no heat and no hot water outages. They do that every 2 hours with an internal email to all of our internal stakeholders, and our federal monitoring team are on that email as well. We also assign staff to specific sites from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. so that the heat desk has additional staff out in the field that they can communicate with. And that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week that the heat desk operates. We also add evening roving teams and overnight roving teams so that the heat desk has staff that they can call on should they need to assign them to an area where they're seeing a potential service disruption. In addition to that, the heat desk is monitored or staffed with supervisory personnel. 24 hours a day, we have 2 administrators that work until midnight, and we have superintendents that cover the 3 different shifts, including an overnight shift that has 2 superintendents, and when temperatures get colder, we staff up. We add additional roving teams, we add overnight plumbing teams, overnight electrical teams as well. And then our resident communication, the way we improve that is through our service disruption protocol. Once a work order in Maximo is created for either a planned or an unplanned heat and or hot water service disruption, a robocall goes out to the affected residents in the area. If it's a single building that's affected, then everyone in that building will get a robocall. For an unplanned outage, the robocall happens within the hour of that service disruption occurring. So once the work order is created in Maximo, Within 15 minutes, it goes on our public-facing website, and residents are getting a robocall within that hour of that outage being created for an unplanned outage. For a planned outage, it's a little bit different. We create those at least 72 hours in advance so that the system, Maximo and Siebel, can send out those robocalls 48 hours in advance, according to our procedure. And then it sends it out again the morning of the actual service disruption for all planned outages. And at the end of every unplanned and planned service disruption, a second robocall goes out to the residents, notifying them that the service disruption has been corrected and service was restored. At that point is an interactive phone call, and the resident has the option to generate an additional work order should they still have a problem in their apartment. And then we, again, assign staff to that issue. Next slide. So one of the things that we've been doing is we've been monitoring our metrics. We want to get more metrics oriented, and this is an example of the metrics that we look at. This, of course, shows our unplanned and planned heat outages. Total numbers for the past 4 years on the left, and on the right, it shows the response time for each of those heating seasons, including the current heating season where we're standing at around 7 hours for response time. Next slide. And while we continue to drill into our metrics, here are some graphs that show some peaks and dips related to our no hot water planned and unplanned, and heat planned and unplanned for a 2-year heating season comparison. This past heating season, the 23-24 heating season, compared to the 2022-2023 heating season. And if you look at the no hot water planned service disruptions on the bottom left corner, you see a sudden increase in the number of outages in March. There's a reason for that. That sort of follows our annual overhaul trend. Our timeline for annual overhaul usually starts around February, and in March is when we start scheduling service disruptions for no hot water. One of the more interesting trends that we see is for the unplanned heat outages for the 2022-2023 heating season compared to the 2023-2024. If you can see, the 2024 is the dark blue line. You can see a steady decrease of the heat outages from January all the way down to May, where in last heating season in February, we had a slight peak. That's related to weather primarily, from what we can see. And some of it may have been related to training of our staff, which we'll get into how we improve that shortly. And if you look at the bottom in May of the unplanned, was that hot water outages month by month. You see in May, we had an increase. The reason for that, what we saw was an increase with our older hot water systems. First generation instantaneous units are starting to show signs of excessive wear and tear, and our oldest piece of equipment, which is our hot water generators. Hot water generators are as old as the buildings themselves. Next slide, please. And this here shows our annual overhaul timeline. Our annual overhaul, as you heard me say early on, we have close to, if not just over 4,000 assets that have to be overhauled. This year we completed overhaul at 100%, and the overhaul process requires us to, the annual overhaul, the annual equipment preventive maintenance process is designed to preserve and restore the asset reliability. We do this by taking the assets apart, cleaning them internally, externally, lubricating, adjusting, repairing, and replacing worn parts. We ensure that the equipment and mechanical areas are in satisfactory operating condition for the next heating season. And we start in February with our instantaneous water heaters, because our instantaneous water heaters have redundancies built in. They do not require a service disruption. And so we're able to take them down one side at a time. While we do the annual overhaul on one side, we're able to continue to provide hot water. In March, we move into our hot water generators. As I said earlier, hot water generators are our oldest piece of equipment. And this is where we require to take the system down. That's why, as I said in the previous slide, can you go back to the previous slide? The bottom left-hand corner, you see an increase in March of hot water planned service disruption. Next slide. As we go through the timeline, in April, we start with our boilers, and we start with plants that have 5 or more boilers. We start with boilers in April simply because in April is when we're seeing temperatures starting to stay mild and become mild. So we take advantage of that. And the reason why we start with plants that have 5 or more boilers is simply because of the built-in redundancies in those plants allow us to be able to run, providing heat and hot water at these sites with 1 and sometimes 2 boilers offline for annual overhaul. By May, we're well into plants with 4 or more boilers, and in June, we're looking to complete our hot water systems at 100% and continue our efforts with our boilers and distribution equipment with the goal to be completed by the end of September 2024, but more importantly, to have every single one of our sites heat ready by October 1st, 2024. This year, I'm happy to say that we did meet that goal and we did complete annual overhaul at 100% of all assets. Next slide. So considering our annual overhaul completion this year, this is where we favor. Right now, when we compare this current heating season to last year's heating season during this same time, last year we saw a total number of outages. This is heat and hot water, planned and unplanned. We saw 288 this same time last year, where this year we're at 177. 15 of which this year have been for heat. Last year we were at 49. Next slide. So one of the things that we also look at is the work orders that our residents are putting in. And we've created a report to capture a list of residents that put more than 3 work orders in a 30-day period. And we use this report to communicate with those residents through our resident liaisons. When they make communication with the residents, they put the information related to that communication on our resident information follow-up tracker. We call it the RIF. And if the resident still has a problem in their apartment when that communication is made, then the resident liaison puts that communication in an email format and sends it out to our field staff, sends it out to the field deputy, the administrator, and the supervisor for that area for follow-up. And the expectation there is that the staff, the frontline supervisors, assign a different set of personnel with a higher skill set to really drill into and determine whether or not there still is a problem. And maybe the individuals that have been going there prior may need training or counseling. We don't know, but we do find out. And we use this report to sort of track that. Next slide. Another report that we use is a QA report. This report is a report that captures every single work order that's heat and hot water work order that's closed out by the frontline staff. This not only tracks the condition that the work order was made for, but it tracks how that work order was closed by the personnel. It shows us the outdoor temperature when the work order was created, outdoor temperature when the work order was closed, the indoor temperature recorded by the staff, the staff's name, the ID number, the resolution code that they use to close out the work order. And you might be asking, why is all that important? It's important because it tells us a story of how that work order was closed and whether or not that individual followed protocol. And if we see all too often a specific individual showing up on this report over and over again, closing out work orders in a way that we may deem inappropriate, then we take action against that employee. That employee is brought in, is interviewed, we look at his work orders closer, and we send other personnel to go look at some of their work performed. And if we find that they need training, then we train them. If we find that they need counseling, then we counsel them. This is a report that we use to hold ourselves accountable, to show our productivity, and of course, as I said, to hold ourselves accountable. Next slide. This is an example of the resident information follow-up. This is a tracker, it's a smart the SharePoint file that was created by Xiomara Catamo, the Deputy Over Administration for our department. And it captures all of that resident communication. We're able to take this and it's separated by borough. And this is where that communication is tracked, whether the condition is open or closed. We can refer back to this to see which boroughs, which developments had the most complaints. And this also tracks any complaints that come to us from the federal monitors or any of our external and internal stakeholders. Next slide. So the training center, HMSD's training center. Training, of course, is a key component and strategy that continues to improve staff's knowledge and the department's overall performance. So it was fitting to have the heating training center that was under NYCHA's Learning and Development merge with heating management as of April 17, 2023. Yeah, Keith.
Yeah, so this is a trend that we're moving on in general, right? It's not just HMSD, this is, for everybody's knowledge, this is something that we are doing across the authority, right? It's actually started with elevators before that, right? Underneath the subject matter expertise and the license holder, right? Elevator mechanics have a license, right? We want the license holder and the kind of the authority and the subject matter expert to be teaching our staff, and we want to make sure that it's controlled and it actually puts all of our SPs in line. So let's use heating as the example, when heating changes a procedure, if heating changes a procedure, that is now built into the training curriculum directly, right? When we have new staff coming out, we were able to develop I don't want to steal your thunder, but we were able to develop, it's not on there anyway, so we were able to develop a mentorship program. So new HPT, it's on the next slide. We were able to develop a mentorship program, so new HPTs aren't alone out there in a boiler room by themselves.
Right.
We're working on apprenticeships and elevators, and so the general idea of having the subject matter expertise guide the training with input from the subject unit is something that we've been working towards in general with learning and development and specifically in heating.
Yeah, and since the merger, we've trained approximately 297 employees. And one of the most latest goals that we've had since this merger was to create a directed training hiring initiative where HPTs, as soon as they're hired, within the first 6 months, they're in training. And that training is a combination of a mentorship program for the first 3 months, which then puts them into the training offered by our heating trainers. It's a 16-course curriculum. Next slide. I'm sorry, not next slide. Currently, we have 25 participants with 24 that were just released on the 7th of November. That are out in the field now, fully trained, and 25 that are being trained now. Next slide.
It's 16 weeks, not 16 courses.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 16 weeks. I said 16 courses?
I was gonna say, that would be way too quick of a turnaround. We wanna make
16 weeks.
16 weeks, man.
With everything and anything that they need to know about being an HPT or heating maintenance worker.
Before you go on this, I gotta say something.
Sure.
So this is this is one of my favorite parts about my job, that I have some really incredible staff around me. I'm not saying that because they're in the room, and they definitely didn't pay me, I can tell you that much. So, what I'll say is, Javier, this is Javier's true brainchild, right? It's not necessarily like a new idea. This is something that he was so passionate about when I got here. It was like one of the first things he said to me. So he's going to talk about this as and I want everybody to understand the moment here. There was a program called the Housing Youth Training Initiative. You may well be familiar with this, the Heidi program. And when I first started here, Javier made it a point to say this is something that was so great for our residents, and really just reiterated it. So I just want to say, he's going to take you through this. This is a passion project that we were able to make happen. I do think it benefits everybody who gets to go through it. And I will also say that as a graduate of the original Heidi program, it was even more personal for Javier. So I just want you to know when he goes off on a tangent, you see him get really into it. There's a reason he drove this. He drove this opportunity for residents. He drove this training program, and he's made it what it is in collaboration with our learning and development team. He has really, they have worked to bring this to life. So this was a passion of his, and I wanted everybody to know that before we move on. So not to embarrass you.
Thank you, Keith, for that very embarrassing moment, but
Yeah.
we shall move on.
That's what I do.
Yeah, thank you for that. So yeah, I was a resident and I became a NYCHA employee through the Housing Youth Training Program. And I did want to establish that, but we wanted to make it better, where it's completely controlled by my department through our training program. And thanks to Dr. Tichelle George, she was able to get a grant to support us not only for this year, but for next year to have. We have 17 trainees now, and we're looking at a potential 24 for next year as well, through that grant. If we can continue that grant, we can continue this program, and this program benefits residents primarily. That's who it is being offered to, residents. Anyone that wants to work for the Housing Authority and learn a trade, this is your way in. And let me just say, as an HPT, you're afforded the opportunity to promote into many different titles. Supervisor caretakers, supervisor grounds, maintenance worker, assistant super, plumber's helper, or even electrical helper. So those 6 different titles are your career trajectory, if you will, as an HPT. Nevertheless, we created the program to give other people the opportunity to have the same opportunity that I had. I started as an HPT, as I said, and here I am today as a vice president. And truthfully, when I started, I said, I'll do this for now until something better comes up, and NYCHA just kept promoting me, and here I am today. Anyway, back to this.
I'll do it till the fire test comes in.
Back to this. So training, one of the first things we did was we created a new curriculum for our training. It's now 16 weeks, now 16 courses. Covers everything you need to know of being an HPT or heating maintenance worker, frontline personnel taking care of our boiler rooms and distribution systems. Within that curriculum, we streamline these skilled assessments. What happens now is if an employee is not doing well in training, they're brought into the trainer's or the deputy director's office. They have a conversation with them, see where they're lacking, and we do assessments not only in the classroom but also in the field to whatever development they are assigned to. That's one way we do assessments. Another way is we train them in real time on their equipment as well, meaning that the trainers go out into the field and they train the staff at a specific location. They'll all meet there, and they'll train them on the actual equipment in real time. We've increased the hands-on training. There's a basic plumbing workshop, electrical workshop, and a pump workshop that we incorporated into the new curriculum. There's also room for refresher training. What we do is we keep a couple of seats open during the 16-week curriculum for all new employees, so that if there's anyone that's currently working as an HPT or a heating maintenance worker that has already been through the training, some of our senior staff as well, if they need additional refresher courses, then we'll put them into whatever part of the course they need. That's why we keep some open seats for that purpose during the 16-week curriculum. Then the other thing that, of course, that we implemented is the HPT training program, which is going to mimic the program that I came out of. Right now we have 17 HPT trainees as of September 23rd, 2024. And the participants are working on the job. They have mentors with them while they're on the job, and they go to school 2 days of the week. They participate in classrooms at City Tech College. The participants are expected to graduate in March. And so far, the 17 are doing pretty well. They're excited. They're learning a lot, not only in the classroom, but they're taking what they learn in the classroom and looking for it in the field and talking about it with the mentors in the field. So it's a very successful program. As I said, we wanted to make it better, and that's one way that we did.
Yeah.
Added that mentorship piece of that.
And one of the other benefits that, as I was talking about earlier, bringing the training under the subject matter expertise, and the department that owns it is, for example, last year we noticed that we needed to have a better focus on feed water management, right? The water that feeds into the boiler system, and that treatment. So we identified, working with some of our oversight partners, some folks who actually really needed that training and would benefit from it. And we brought those people to Sheep's Head and gave them an intensive re-instruction on how that is. And now we're following up on that with field visits to see that they actually retain the information. So by owning the training, that was something that was a little difficult to happen in the past, right? We would request something, that would have to go to approval through a different department, blah, blah. Now, not only is heating owning the training, but all training is under support services. So we can make that adjustment as we need to on the fly. So when they escalate, somebody has to. What's that?
I think it was.
Let's not hear.
Someone else, alright, whatever.
Just make sure to bring the mic to red.
on that.
Is it that microphone next to you?
No?
Just keep it,
Yeah.
It's not even microphone. Something in the room is somebody on their laptop have the mic on perchance, unmuted. Whoever's driving the meeting, maybe.
it's okay now.
We're good? Better?
Great,
Ah.
great.
So anyway, all the training right under one roof is actually tremendously helpful, and actually owning the training in general has been great. So we can actually do these areas of focus, and it extends beyond heating, but this is a prime example of something that we would do with refreshers.
The last bullet is
Oh,
just newly appointed staff. The next cohort is expected to start in the fall of 2025. That's newly appointed staff.
Yeah.
Next slide. I think that's
Okay,
it.
well, thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. We're gonna open it up to questions now, and I'll just start from one that just came in on this topic from online, which is, where can we send residents to apply for the program? So can you talk a little bit about that?
So when we do the next application period, it will be through REES, Resident Economic, right? Oh man, I'm butchering the acronym, the REES department. Resident Economic and Employment Services, REES.
No, Resident Empowerment and Economic
Yeah, thank you.
No.
See, man, this is why we need to work together.
No
You know what I mean? I appreciate that. Yeah, so anyway, the REES department will be posting it, and we'll make the application available more widely. I think as we were setting the program up this year, we didn't have some of the back end prepared for it, and because of timing, we needed to get started, so we did some just kind of word of mouth outreach, but next year we'll have a true application process.
And that'll be publicly posted?
Publicly posted on the REES website.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you.
It's for NYCHA residents primarily.
Yes,
Okay,
both section 9 and section 8.
correct.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Martinez.
So, I'm assuming that this is a section 3. That section 3 requirements do apply to this. And
For which one?
For the training program that.
It's all there are no non-residents in the program.
It's all residents, yeah.
The HPT training.
They're
100%.
Yeah.
in the
Section
training.
8, section 9 residents.
And
yes.
in working as well?
Yeah.
Out of that training program.
So there's 2 programs, right? So we have the full HPT training program to get into the HPT title.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go through the union training, then our training, and that is separate from this. This is a specific mentoring and training program for residents, and it is 100% residents, all residents.
Well, the training program, but,
HPT training program. Yeah.
right, but section 3 though, because this is funded by section 3 financial assistance.
It's actually funded, the grants from Con Ed actually.
Well, no, NYCHA. NYCHA is funded.
Yeah.
All their employees are funded under Section
Yeah.
9 funds, right?
Right.
So that triggers the mandates, 25% of labor hours to go to.
Right.
Right. So is that something that you guys are
So.
trying to achieve? Is that?
I mean, as far as NYCHA being an employer of our residents, yeah, I mean, that's, the purpose of this program is to create that opportunity, and like I said, the employee, they're fully paid employees. The members of this training program are all 100% residents. Like, there is no non-resident in the training program.
So, how,
Maybe I'm not understanding the question.
Yeah.
which, and I understand that, no, that's, alright, so maybe you can't answer this question, now the question would be, how many residents are in NYCHA staff? How many hours, and are they accounting for that?
I can get you the exact number, we do account for that, it's about, you know what, let me get you the exact number, cause it's a moving target, but I wanna say it's in the mid-20s, 30%, it's a significant number of our staff, of NYCHA specifically, people who are residents, it's a significant number, maybe we will follow up and get you the exact number.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Hall?
First of all, Javier, I admire your passion with regards to the heating per se. What I'd like to know is this. A lot of developments fall what I call on deaf ears because the heating, the pipes themselves have been in existence over a number of years. So it's not so much the boilers. Some sections don't get enough heat necessary because there's a problem on the line itself, which is the pipes. It's been my experience throughout the years with this problem that exists within the confines of a development, just certain sections, and you have to bring up the heat a little bit more in some sections than others. Have you found a remedy to this? I've always told the workers to put whatever is necessary in the crawl space so that if emergency services came at night, they would know that you have to raise up the heat in a particular area more than another.
Yeah, and so one of the solves to that, and then I'll let you get into I know you have it already planned out, because we talked about this quite a bit, but one of the things that we did was, instead of having emergency services manage our heating response at night, heating manages the heating response. So there are HPTs and heating maintenance workers on overnight, right? So they can actually look and diagnose that problem. That's one part of it, right? Putting the expertise into the field and creating that 24-hour roving team option. So that's step one. Also, I'll let you get to the technical part.
Right, also, from a technical standpoint, first you have to understand that we have 3 different types of heating systems. And the one system that we see this problem primarily in is our 2-pipe Varivac system. Varivac because it requires vacuum on the distribution piping to be created so that it pulls the steam through the system. Not push it, it pulls it through. And because our pipes are as old as the buildings themselves, the real remedy would be to replace all of the piping, which we would need a tremendous amount of capital funding to do. So,
And the gut rehab.
and we don't.
And it would be
full
gut rehab.
gut rehab of the system. So what we do is we, like you pointed out, we raise the valves up, we compensate the valve to make up for that loss of vacuum that we can't produce because the pipes are somewhat compromised, meaning that they don't hold vacuum. Not necessarily that they're leaking all over the place, they're just not holding the vacuum that they use because of that. What the vacuum does is sucking through the pipe, so it's pulling in air into the system and not allowing the steam to be sucked through the system. It's being sucked through with the air at the same time, so you don't have the right suction, so you overcompensate, you open the valve more, you add more steam to the system to get it to where you need it to get. And it causes somewhat of an imbalance in the system.
Okay.
And that's another thing, that's an area of focus on us for investment, aside from the technical piece of it, I mean, we do a lot of, I'm gonna sound like a broken record like every executive who's up here and consistently says this, but we do look at every ticket. But we do look at every ticket, I'll speak for heating, and I think NYCHA as a whole, we look at every ticket. in this instance, the in-unit complaints, a single apartment complaint, adds up over time, right? So we look at the developments that are having these challenges, and if we notice it's maybe a building or it within a property, or it's a property as a whole, that triggers to us that we need to repair maybe a large piece of equipment, right? Like a vacuum tank or a pump or something like that. So all of those things add up, right? Outages, resident complaints, all that adds up to us saying, okay, we have this limited pool of operational capital dollars, and we can repair this to make the system better, or we can put our steam optimization team out there in the field to fix, right? Another of Javier's, like honestly, just great ideas, simple ideas of the steam optimization. So we want to talk about it for a second?
Sure.
Yeah.
So the steam optimization, we created it because of this problem. When we looked at the work order data, we found that the majority of sites that had the most heat complaints, I'm talking heat complaints, no heat, not enough heat, not too much heat, no heat, not enough heat, were the two-pipe vacuum system. And in order to get those systems aside from not having the capital funding, what we did internally was we created a steam optimization squad. The SOS is what we call them. And what they do is they'll go into a development that has the highest work orders, and they'll run through the entire system. They'll go to every single apartment, replace all of the bimetallic elements, that's the steam trap that's in the apartment. When those things fail, they create a pressurized system, not a vacuum system. It destroys vacuum on the system. We also go in and look at the valve to make sure it's working properly. We service all the traps in the basement, look for any visible signs of leaks. We restore the vacuum pump to full optimal performance. And then once all of that is done, we perform what's called an air test, where we introduce peppermint. We pressurize the steam piping, the distribution piping, and we introduce peppermint scent into that steam piping, and we smell around to try to identify where there are leaks, and we'll repair as much as we can. As I said, aside from doing a complete steam pipe distribution replacement project, which we don't have the capital funding to do, this is what we do. We try to repair as much as we can.
I've heard of that peppermint, I've heard of that one.
Well, years ago, when I was in HPT, we used skunk oil, which was a foul odor. Now it's peppermint, it's a pleasant odor.
We upped our set game, for sure.
Yeah.
Welcome to the new world, thank you.
Yeah.
Nice, Mr.
I have a question.
Mr. Martinez, next question.
Thank you. So when you were talking about the vacuum system, is there a metric that measures that can rate the condition that it's in, right? At least the bare minimum of poor, good, adequate, excellent. I would love to know that measure, and I also forgive me. I just observed that you said no heat or too little heat, but too much heat is not something that has a focus. And so I want to have understanding of that, because we do have a lot of instances of too much heat in certain areas of the building, maybe because they're over the boiler or whatever other reason. But that's first floors in older developments like mine's tend to have hot first floors. And then the third thing is the tickets. And I think that we should have someone representing the call center at these meetings, because we can't talk about tickets going down and consistency of us being able to create the ticket without having that department. We have a lot of issues where the call centers won't make a ticket. They'll tell the resident that they sent it over, but won't give them a ticket number or won't create the ticket. And also the app, me myself on the application, I was trying to create a ticket and it tried to force me into a mold ticket. And I couldn't create the ticket. Because after I tried to go back in and I just couldn't create it, I had to go through the local management office and plead with them. So we definitely need to have the call center here, because we can't have conversations about work orders and discount the fact that some people are having a lot of issues creating them. So yes, I would like to know that, and what's counseling. So three things, I ain't need to put so much.
Counselor, like the memo?
Yeah, well, I heard the federal monitor told us that you guys don't have a, like what was it, that they don't have I don't wanna say punishment system.
Evaluation.
An evaluation system, right? And so now what,
We do
where
have
does,
a disciplinary
Yeah.
process.
but where does the counseling impact
So I'm,
the evaluations?
so I will take that one at the end and let's start with the heating stuff.
Let's start with the
I'll
heating
take
stuff.
it. Yeah,
So I
yeah.
just want to clarify, it's not that we don't focus on the too much heat. It's for the purpose of assigning the SOS. We look at primarily the no
SOS
heat,
meeting, I'm sorry.
the steam optimization squad. We do focus on too much heat. The steam optimization was to help balance the two pipe vacuum systems. That's what it was for. In fact, with too much heat complaints, no heat, not enough heat, no hot water, we look at those tickets every day, every 2 hours. We run a report, it gets sent out to all my field supervisors, administrators and deputies, including me, and we look at it, and we look for areas of high ticket counts to see if there's a potential service disruption going on. And too much heat is on that list. So I just wanted to clear that up. And we do have a progressive disciplinary process, which Keith is gonna touch more
The
on.
reason why I'm asking that is because I've had, and they were telling the resident, not realizing that the resident was a board member of mine. Let me say, the reason why I'm asking that is because I've received feedback from a resident who happened to be a board member of mine, who told me that, a heat worker told her, right, that with a person who complains of too much heat, that they would have to cut the heat off in the whole building.
That's not true.
Not true.
Which I told her, but the fact is that, and I'm not, I would like to correct the work-in-place
Yeah,
environment.
yeah.
I'm not trying to isolate any individual
No,
person,
not at all.
right? And so I'm trying to see how we can rectify that because, you know, that kind of message in the community of people who don't know how heating works then creates confusion
Right,
and a lot of back and forth. And then they try to blame me for it. They said, oh, well, you know, the president would get me in trouble if I cut the building off for the heat. I would if they cut the building off. I mean, if they cut the heat from the building, but that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge, right? Again, it goes back to this idea of steam balancing, right? We're balancing the steam in all pipes, so we do make adjustments, and we can, wherever possible, make an in-unit adjustment, right? Maybe it's just that valve is passing too much, and we'll replace that valve, right? So we will identify the issue. It's not that there's nothing we can do, and again, we will correct that employee as we see him. So that was the point of that quality report. So we do have a disciplinary process, right? It's multiple tiered. How does it tie into an evaluation? Everybody gets a probation. I got one, right? I mean, it doesn't matter where you are in the organization. You get a probationary evaluation, right? And you within that process, the disciplinary process. Like for example, if you got a memo at any level, right? So there's 3 different kind of levels of this. Is verbal, there's instructional, and what we like to do with instructional is like, you're not doing your job correctly. Here's what you need to do to improve and work through that process. A counseling memo is a disciplinary write-up, essentially. And it's one of the closer to the end stage of the disciplinary process, which then goes to a hearing or a general trial. We utilize this in many different ways. Doesn't matter how long you've been here, we can still take somebody through the disciplinary process as needed, whether you're on probation or not. So how does it tie into evaluations? If you were written up multiple times when we release our evaluation program, obviously that would tie in. At the moment, we do have a disciplinary process available to us, regardless of an evaluation process, if somebody is a substandard performer. No, that was like a little bit long-winded, but that's just, if we utilize it.
One of the concerns that I have is we have so many questionable employees, especially in local management levels, that seem to progress more quickly, though poor they do at their job.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to figure out, if you get more disciplinary notice, you get promoted quicker. Is this the evaluation process?
Oh, no.
Okay.
The goal is actually, I think the goal is to not necessarily prevent somebody from getting promoted, but to correct the behavior.
Yeah.
Right? So one of the other, this isn't really a heating thing, but putting on my L&D hat for a second, one of the things that we were tasked with Monitorship and are working with the monitor team on is restarting to an acceptable level supervisory training, right? The classes were there, I think during COVID they kind of fell off, but COVID excuses no more. And we piloted some new versions of this class with some new policy changes in it we had a bunch of new supers in the past year and assistant supers and housing managers, and we were able to bring them in and kind of go through this curriculum. The goal moving forward would be that anybody who comes into that title, in that new title, SOC, there's a specific training program for them, SOG, assistant super, assistant manager, right? We want them to be able to not only understand their jobs, but when you get to the manager and super level, there's understanding the administrative side for maintenance supervisors, and then there's understanding maintenance for the administrative side, right? So we really want everybody to understand not only what their job is, but understand the totality of what they're supervising. So that is an area that we are working on. Acknowledge that. Part of that, why did I bring all this up? Part of that is understanding the disciplinary process and how to effectively use that, right? It only works if you use it. That's the truth, right? You're not, wow, this guy's been terrible, I'm trying to get rid of him. Did you write him up? Well, then he's stuck. You're stuck. So you follow the appropriate disciplinary process, right? Because no matter how terrible somebody is, we just like anybody would hope you'd get a chance, right? So there's a verbal, there's an instructional, there's a counseling, and then it goes to a trial for determination of a disciplinary action. And that is our, in a nutshell, very short version of the disciplinary process. So I encourage my staff to use it all the time, and especially not to pass that instructional memo, right? Like the instructional memo is an opportunity to retrain somebody, right? Maybe you have somebody who's got a good heart and just doesn't get it. Well, can they be retrained? Let's give them that opportunity. If not, let's find out what they're good at and let's help them move towards that, right? Like heating isn't for everybody. It's really challenging, it's complex. Elevators aren't for everybody. It's challenging, it's complex. There's a lot of liability on that. But maybe you can do some administrative work. Maybe you're good with spreadsheets, right? Well, I need somebody who's good with spreadsheets. Well, let's move them over here, right?
Well, I want you to know that I strongly believe in the instructional side, right? About 30% of the NYCHA workforce is public housing residents who are actively living in public housing developments now, and the instructional part is crucial, right? But now I also see them not progressing, not moving and engaging in the opportunities that NYCHA has. I don't see them moving over into the trade works, and I don't know if heating would be considered a trade, but I think it would. Now I don't see them moving over into this line of opportunities. I see them stuck in the caretaker and local management side of things. And so I'm looking at the evaluation process and saying, because if we got people over here who are being shielded and holding up positions that are not letting them progress, or if they're being overlooked because they're doing good work but being overlooked because we don't have an evaluation process that says you need to progress forward, then we need to reassess how we engage in this because people are not progressing properly.
I wholeheartedly agree, and that is one of the reasons why in 2025 we will be starting a career development. We're going to start focusing on the D of L&D, which is development, and staff development and career development. So in the beginning of the year, our goal is to launch that part of L&D and
I got one
make
thing
sure the
too.
opportunities are made available and our staff is educated on them, because that is something that is missing.
And you mentioned Reese with this training. Now, I don't have an issue with Reese, but Reese's penetration into the public housing resident population has been only 4%. And I say that through actual numbers that were provided during the COVID era, and this was pre-COVID numbers. This is when I was on the Section 3 working committee, in which I was able to get those numbers specifically from Reese and from the compliance department. So now, when we only have a 4% penetration, I think that we need to strategize better on how to communicate these opportunities to the resident population that we have, because these are significant, and I have a lot of residents that would like to learn how to get in, but the communication isn't good.
I mean, I appreciate that, and I
When are
think,
y'all gonna get to us people out here that are waiting here as presidents? I mean, it seems to be just a
That's common, so.
I know. I miss Quinones. That's Keith, how are you?
You wanna
I'm gonna finish.
Why don't you finish the answer?
Yes,
We're gonna get
agree with
somebody
you,
on.
I agree with you, let's talk about it, I'd love to hear about it, I think we
So
need,
go
we need to
back.
find a way to
Go to them.
get out there, maybe it's us going out there and saying, hey, come join us.
We have a few questions from online. I'm just gonna start with one posted into the chat, which is, where can we get a copy of the presentation that was given today? So I'll just note that after the meeting, we'll be posting the video on the Monitor website and the presentation as well. And so you can get that at www.NYCHAmonitor.com, so that'll be available. And we have some folks waiting for questions, so now I'll open it up. I think Ms. Quinones, you had a question?
well, I got a few questions actually from the presentation that you guys submitted, and thank you for the invite. First of all, I've been looking forward to talking with the monitor. Um, First of all, I think that the heating. Let's go back to the heating. The heating problem is really on the pipes. So we must acknowledge that because some of the buildings, half of the building might get heat and the other half won't get heat, no matter how they try. And I work with heating, and they're very good people, and I've never had a problem with them. But this is beyond just the heating people. It's really a lot that has to do with the piping. Going back to Reese, I right now have contracts happening here in Douglas houses. I have gotten my people to go to Reese, and it's been a problem. It's been a real big problem getting them on board because Reese takes about 4 or 5 weeks. We don't hear anything. People get discouraged and they go to another job. Something has to be done with that because if the residents have the qualifications, um, and we're supposed to be going through Reese, the contractors are having a real hard time. Four of my people that I've submitted were actually their paperwork never went through, never went through. So there's a problem with Reese when it comes to that. So we're talking about multiple things here. And I really would love to sit with this monitor like I sat with Bart for a long time. I think that we need to have a one-on-one because, everybody, ICOP doesn't speak for everybody. CCOP doesn't speak for everybody. Me, personally, I do my own thing here. Nobody helps me with nothing. Nothing. And I, not for nothing, but I do a great job. I mean, I've been sitting here. I sit in my office from 10 a.m. to 5, sometimes 7 p.m. Okay, I've been through every roof here. There's contractors here. The gas the gas rises, and I'm on top of this. It's finally getting done. I work more than the people we have. We are short staffed. Our management office short staffed. Our caretakers short staffed. I mean, this has got to get better than this. There's a lot going on, and we all need. And you need to. I'm hoping that the monitor can sit with these presidents, really, because CCOP and ICOP they don't talk for me at all, at all. There's no communication. There's no people are sitting in the monitors now, and I get no communication from nobody. If you're a board member
It's just
of
hearings.
the monitor, then we supposed to know what's going on. We know nothing. We're in the dark. So again, I speak for myself and the residents that elected me, 3,000 of them. So please, I would really love to sit with you. I had a very good rapport with Bark, and I aim to have that with you, so that we can see what we can do. As the program that you're giving it seems like a very good program. I need to know from what age to what age. When are the trainings going to start for resident management corporations? There needs to be training so that we can do that. There's a whole lot we can be doing, and I'm looking forward to speaking with all of you.
Thank you, Ms. Quinones. I know we've been in touch about setting an individual meeting, and we look forward to setting that up. And then on the NYCHA part, if, gentlemen, you can answer Ms. Quinones' question.
No, yeah, I mean, I thought that was more directed, I just thought it was directed. But yeah, I thank you, Ms. Quinones, I couldn't agree more, I mean, you know, there's a lot of, there's a major capital deficit and, you know, we'll continue to work on this, you know, with you, but, until there is enough capital to fix every pipe in NYCHA, you know, we'll keep repairing it and doing our best to keep it running.
Thank you.
Just know that
I know
there is
you-
a big gap of lack of communication, especially with the presidents, with CCOP, ICOP, all of that. So we got to get this together. We really got to get this together, and I'm hoping that this monitorship is just as good as Bart. Bart was very good. I have put my hats off to him, and I want to put my hats off to you. So I'm looking forward to it.
With the age limit for the
Thank you. Go ahead.
heating training program, it's over 18. There's no real set limit.
Thank you.
As long as you're over 18.
And Ms. Quinones, call me anytime, you know that.
Likewise, Ms. Quinones.
Yes.
Okay, that's my number.
Other questions from online? I think we might have a question from a Mrs. Bergen Isaacs. You could go ahead.
No, Mrs. Bergen, from Isaac,
From
sorry, my
Isaac,
handwriting
sorry.
is atrocious, I think that, she may have put it in the chat, she was trying to.
Yeah, we're not seeing it in the chat, but if
Or maybe it's in the comments on the
no.
on the YouTube end, no?
Okay, other questions from the Zoom? Okay,
Do the seated Zoom, so that way, you know, like, you know, there's not a conflict here in the Zoom.
Ms. Tibbs had a comment. Should I read it? Should we read it?
I can come in?
Yeah, well, you can see right here.
yeah, good. Oh, we have a comment from Ms. Tibbs about
Oh.
reach out for the monitors, and yes, I know we've been in touch, and Ms. Tibbs will be reaching out to you about a meeting as well, so thank you.
So, yeah, it was great.
Are there other
Get that screen
comments
in.
from either the Zoom or from the YouTube stream? Okay, Mr. Hall, any other comments, or Mr. Martinez?
Well, yeah, there is a communication problem amongst the presidents, all right? I've been with Bart, I'm with you, okay? My development, there's no transparency whatsoever, but I focus on my 6 buildings, because that's where I live, that's who I am, okay? I'm not gonna be a politician, I'm not gonna be a heating specialist, I can't be everything for everybody. But the fact of the matter is transparency, all right? And when there's a dent in transparency, it hurts everyone, okay? I've explained the role of the monitor and how the monitor was created to monitor NYCHA, not to solve every problem, but if you're smart, you listen to what is being facilitated at the monitor's meeting, and you can get more satisfaction regarding your problem rather than solving the problem. But because we have so much going on, and I say that because as a president, you have this inner battle of not being privatized, not going to PAC, not going to RED, not trying to get into the trust, trying to preserve Section 9. It's a lot of work in and of itself before we even talk about going to heating, going to roofing, the needs and the wants. And this because more chaos, because it's more of a workload for the people in charge. And that's it. That's what it comes down to. So when there's not transparency, this is what takes place. But in order to be successful, everyone must explain their proficiency or lack thereof, so that everybody understands the problems because we all have to deal with it. So thank you.
Thank you. I just want to note, we've gotten a note that the YouTube wasn't accepting comments, which we've now resolved. So I want to make sure that anyone on the YouTube who tried to put in a comment, please do try again to put in your question to make sure that we can get it on the record here. So I'll just say that and give a sec. And in the meantime, I'll just note for any residents listening or for other TA presidents, please do reach out. All the TA presidents who have reached out, we've had those individual meetings, we're working to set those up and look forward to all of that feedback. We want input across the board. And so please do, interact with us about that. We want to engage with as many residents as we can. In the interim.
And I'll just echo Mike as well. I mean, and I know that you know this in our conversation, but we're also, if you want to just speak to the monitor, that's fine. If you want us to join them, we're happy to join them as well. Join the number of your resident meetings. I think it's a great opportunity to hear directly from the source. Even it kind of takes you out from being the middle person, right? Like residents can just yell at me directly. They don't have to yell at me.
I will always be yelled at.
I know.
That's the business that we're in. And like I said, I get up 6 o'clock in the morning. I go in and out of my office. I come in 1, 2 o'clock. But the fact of the matter is this, you can tell after a while what the workload is really about and who to get a hold of, all right? And before I say that, I want you to make sure I get an organizational chart that you have for heating.
Thank you.
All right?
Yeah, we'll get you your local folks,
Yeah.
We have time for one more question. I know we have Ms. Tibbs waiting, so we'll take one more question on heat, and then we'll have a few minutes for Chief Secreto on safety and security. So Ms. Tibbs, please go ahead.
Thank you for letting me speak. I would like to say, number one, it is the monitor's job to oversee heating, elevators, mold, lead, correct? You have a RAD development up here that has, since they've gone through conversion, they're having mold issues. They're having broken elevators with brand new elevators, and they don't even know who to ask for on your team, which is why I sent an email today. You guys have been in existence now for approximately 8 months. None of us know who you are. None of us know how to get a hold of you. And 3 presidents sitting on that round table do not speak for all of us and do not communicate with all of us. So this is a huge issue over here. When Wise Towers has been converted, they barely get heat on a good day. And unfortunately, I wish they could be attached to Mr. Almendavar. We do great together. We have a great reputation, but they have nobody to talk to because everything with them goes through their private management, and the private management does absolutely nothing. They haven't had consistent heat in the past 2 years. We had a huge issue up here this weekend. I was in constant contact with Mr. Almendavar because he didn't even know that Con Edison shut our heat down. Again, where's the monitors team? You can't just talk to 3 presidents. You have to talk to all of us.
And thanks for that, Ms.
Because
Tibbs. Thanks for that.
that's got to stop.
Thanks for that, Ms.
Okay?
Yeah, and just to be clear, the CAC forum is really just one forum in which we're interacting with residents. We are doing our best to be out there and interfacing with residents in many different ways.
And it is, but you sat at a city council meeting the other week and said how you've been interacting with all of us. My city councilwoman, Ms. Brewer, even told you, when are you coming to Manhattan? You have talked to nobody in Manhattan except for Ms. Torres on the Lower East Side. Manhattan is much bigger than just the Lower East Side. So let me know when you decide to come to the Upper West and we could all meet together as a group. Everything doesn't have to be individual. All us presidents, for the majority, work together up here very well. We would have no problem meeting with your team as a group.
And we would be delighted to come. So I think, contact us through the various methods that Michael mentioned earlier. And we would be happy to address in a group.
You guys should have been reaching out to us. It took me until today to find out who one person was on your team. At the end of the day, you took over. You should have sent all of us an introductory email telling us who you were and who's in charge of what borough. You have yet to do that.
We
We
actually
shouldn't
did.
have to be hunting you down. You
Okay.
should be reaching out to us.
Well, we actually did send a letter out to all residents. If you did not receive that, again, let us know. Our website, which Michael cited, has all of the relevant contact information for reaching us. And, we'll continue to engage with residents in as many different ways that we can.
I hope so, because what you're giving me now is the typical lawyer response. I don't need a lawyer response. I need you guys to actually be concerned as to what's happening to us.
Well, I think that, again, we've met with a lot of different resident organizations. We are out there, we are available. And whether that you perceive that as a typical lawyer's response or a typical human being's response, I can assure you that we care deeply about the work that we're doing. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. And as I said, we look forward to further engagement.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I mentioned before that we had a question from Ms. Bergen. We were having a technical challenge, but she may be available now.
I think she's in the Zoom waiting room.
Okay, so let's give her a sec, and then we'll address that one more question, because I know she had one from before, and then we'll finish up with safety and security. Thanks very much. Is Ms. Bergen around and available?
There we go, Mrs. Bergen. I see you. You're on mute, but I see you.
See her?
Yeah, she's here.
We'll give her a sec, and then we'll address that one more question, because I know she had one from before.
So you gotta lower your volume in the back.
Is Ms. Bergen around and available?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. You have the Zoom, the YouTube that you're watching, if you could shut that off, though, we still hear the echo, but we can hear you.
Yeah, I just did.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I just don't know what I'm doing here, as usual. But you can hear me.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and we can see you.
And we see you.
Oh, well, Jesus. That's not good. That's not good.
We all don't see it.
You guys have a better understanding. My son-in-law works is an IT person, but oh well.
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Javier, how long have we known each other?
Let's see, I've been in NYCHA 30 somewhat years and counting. I would say a good 15 to 20 years we've known each other, about.
At least, okay. Everything that you spoke about before, we've already done.
Yes, we have.
We cut, we changed elements.
Air testing and everything else.
The trap, we did everything but dance, to smoke signals to get heat.
Yeah.
And it still doesn't work.
And there's still one riser in your apartment that doesn't get heat, yes, I know.
So, I mean, what are we gonna do? I have to go to my daughter's because my daughter's house is warmer than stay here when the temperature drops because it's too cold. Now, the bedroom that I sleep in is not cold. It's the other bedrooms. But by them being cold, it makes the rest of the house cold.
So for some reason, that one riser is just like a blind riser, and we can't get heat to that riser, no matter what we try, unless we overcompensate the system, then it starts coming through.
And then we have a lady, another resident in another building talk
Yes.
about too much heat. She has too much heat.
And that's what happens, when you overcompensate, you get too much heat.
So then you get too much heat. But meanwhile, Mrs. Bergen is not 20 years old
But
anymore.
we're not giving up on it though, we're still trying, we're gonna hit it again, we're gonna keep doing everything that we know to do to try to get it right. Aside from replacing every single piece of pipe in the building, which is something that obviously we would need a tremendous amount of capital funding to do, we're gonna keep doing what we know to do in the heating department to try to get the heat back.
Listen, if we get into any of that, we'll be here all day. I just wanted it to be on record here that we've done everything.
We have.
Everything. And it still doesn't work. So, I don't know. Someone has to come and give it a blessing or something, I don't know. Someone has to do something, because this is ridiculous. So that's really what I was focusing on. And I'm sorry, so I don't know who the monitor is. Is the monitor here?
Raise your hand.
It's on my
Raise your
right.
hand, monitors.
I am one of the co-monitors who are here. My colleague Matt Sampola is not here. He's out of the country actually.
Appreciate it.
He's out of the country,
Yes. But I'm here.
but you're here.
I am.
Okay, so, and your name is?
My name is Neil Borofsky.
All right, I don't remember the name. I did get a letter from someone introducing themselves, so.
That was me.
Can you send me your information?
Absolutely. All of our information is available online, but we will reach out to you directly as well. As long as we have.
No, you can reach out to me directly. Mr.
Okay.
Grossman has my email.
Great. We will reach out to you
Sure,
directly.
yes.
Thank you very
Okay.
much, Ms. Bergen.
Thank you.
Okay, we only have a few minutes left today, so thank you relating to heat. We'll turn it over to Chief Secreto to talk briefly of the time left around safety and security. Thanks very much.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm there. Good afternoon, everyone. Great job by my colleagues. And like Javier, I'm also a product of public housing, Albany Houses in Brooklyn. I'm James Secreto, Vice President of the Office of Public Safety. And I will do a quick overview of what the Office of Safety and Security has been doing this year and in particular most recently. One of the problems that we have, and you know as well, is homeless in our buildings. So we do a homeless operation 3 times a week. And this is in collaboration with NYPD, Department of Homeless Services, and us, NYCHA. Breaking Ground, a nonprofit organization, has joined us, and that's huge because now we're able to do, this is a 3rd operation that we're able to do in Queens every week. That's huge. So far this year, we've done 105 of these such operations. It's not a lot, but it's something. And what we do when we do these operations is we go to the buildings, to the development, and with those 3 organizations, and if we encounter someone that's obviously homeless or in the buildings, we offer them shelter, mental health services, drug treatment, and more often than not, they decline, but they have to leave. And then a lot of times there's encampment, there's mattresses. One guy had a refrigerator. We have to clear that stuff out. It's a danger, fire hazards. So that's as far as the homeless goes. We signed an MOU 2.5 years ago that put that group together to do these operations. And prior to that MOU, homeless services could not enter the buildings, the NYCHA buildings. So the big part about that is now they can come in the buildings, walk the staircases with us, and encounter people that are obviously don't live there. Another thing we've been doing recently is the apartment reclamations. Now, I don't want to step on Lieutenant Barron's here and Megan. It's a big part of the police department, but it started out about 1.5 years ago. It was brought to our attention that a tenant, his apartment had been taken over by drug dealers, and he was now homeless walking the streets. So with that, we met with the police department and came up with this strategy to reclaim these type of apartments. And in that 1.5 years, we're up to 179 such apartments that have been taken over by drug dealers, gangs, whatever, and we've been able to recover these apartments. That's huge. That's huge because a lot of these apartments, there's drugs, there's guns, there's stolen property. They don't pay rent, of course, and they're causing chaos in that building, that development, and we've been able to get them out of there. Another thing we're doing is Amazon lockers. We've put in 57 different developments, over 500 lockers, and 262 packages have been delivered. Now this is big because prior to that, there was a big theft problem with, when Amazon comes, they may put the packages in the hallway, in the lobby or whatever, and I don't think they ever hit the ground. That sometimes people follow their trucks or what have you. So this is big. This is helped us out with theft, and it's been working. I think we're going to Isaac's tomorrow. We've been there already. So we go with the TA president, walk the development, and we have input from the TA president as to where these lockers should be put. They're 6 foot high. I don't know, I think 6 feet wide as well. And so we get input from the TA president, but in some cases where they're situated is not ideal. So tomorrow we're going back to Isaac and taking a look at where we situated that locker, and maybe with input from Ms. Bergen, we'll resituate that locker. Some of the other things that we do is with security guards. And I heard recently that City Council approved funding for our security guards, 6.8 million. So we have security guards in the 56 or so senior developments, and we have fire guards in places where the fire suppression system is compromised. So if there's a sprinkler system or a fire alarm or the standpipe is shut down because of a leak, we have to put a fire guard there by law. And that fire guard in many cases is 24 hours, 7 days a week. So that was a big expense. In the beginning of the year, there were 153 such locations that needed these type of fire guards. But there's a fire director, I guess he's my counterpart, on the fire side, Joe Terranova. He's done a terrific job, him and his team. So they've reduced that number of sites that needed fire guards from 153 earlier this year, back in January. Now there are 38 such sites. So the last number I heard of savings was 30 million, and that was like a month or two ago. So the savings are huge that we've reduced the need for these guards. We also have Resident Watch. We're doing, it's been in Resident Watch, formerly Tenant Patrol. When I lived in housing, I was on Tenant Patrol, had a windbreaker. It's been in effect since 1967, 57 years. We have 1,250 volunteers, but we've been trying to up that number. And we're trying to change the way we do business. As prior to the pandemic, people that were volunteers would sit in the lobby. That's not really practical nowadays for people to sit in the lobby. It's kind of, it's not safe. So we're looking to do it a different way where we have people on their floors.
Yes, go under the president. The TA president should be doing that. They should go under the TA president.
We'll
Make sure you
talk.
mute the line, but go ahead.
We'll talk. Who was that? Aixa? Carmen? All right, we'll talk offline, Carmen. All right, so, where was that? All right, we also do e-bikes and gas bikes. In the 3 years that I've been here, there have been 4 deaths in housing as a result of these e-bikes. So what we do is we team up with NYPD. We go to a development and we have a truck, and we recover these bikes. First, we give them a notice.
Everybody's muted, I can't hear.
Oh, we're muted now.
Can you hear, Rose?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Now I got you.
So we team up with PD. So for example, Marcy Houses, I think it was a week or two ago, we teamed up with PSA 3, took 10 bikes illegally parked, and we recovered them. This year, so far, over 300 bikes recovered. One of them up in the 49th precinct was stolen out of the 42nd precinct. So some of them are stolen, some of them, they're all dangerous and they don't belong there. CCTV is another thing that we do. There's 19,000 cameras. Our guys install, repair, maintain the cameras. We also work in collaboration with NYPD, the DA's office, and other agencies, supply them with video. Last week, we got a call from, I can't think of the development here on the Lower East Side. There was a shooting. They called us. They wanted footage of the shooting. We supplied them with that. And if necessary, we go to court and testify as to the chain of custody of that video. Also, we do comprehensive development risk and safety assessments. This is where we go to a development from roof to the basement. We do an inspection of the conditions, the doors, the lighting, security, the cameras, whether the radios work or not. And we give a report to the property management, to the borough vice president, and to the TA president for that matter, and give them 30 days to address the conditions that we point out that are defective. And then I'll just end, we have an anonymous tip line, and the number is 212-306-7027. It's anonymous. You call, we don't ask we don't ask any questions. We take the information, any subject, but you can, again, call this anonymous tip line and give us any issues that you have, and nobody takes your name, nobody calls you back. And that's it.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Chief Secreto, and we're a little over time, so I appreciate that. Please, find us at, again, NYCHA If there's any follow-up, we'll be reaching out to some of the folks we heard from today, and if there's particular follow-up for Chief Secreto. Oh, I'm sorry, let's answer this question. You want to just mention your name and title, please?
Who, me?
Yes, please.
James Secreto, Vice President of the Office of Public Safety.
Great, thanks so much. So we are working on a schedule for the CAC for 2025. So we have all of that locked in for the year. We will be sending that out before the end of the year. We'll be in touch about that. And again, if others want to be in touch, please reach us at, again, www.NYCHAmonitor.com. And we heard from some folks today that we'll be getting back to. Thanks very much for your time today.
Like stealing your thunder, but you wouldn't have got it out,
Still planning on doing that?
Still working on the IT part of it.
Yeah.
Can we do a local training on the heat
Keep us going,
for
keep
that?
us going.